Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the greatest podcast in Edmonton, Alberta, Trident Wargaming. This week, we're talking a hometown 40k GT recap. We're talking initial impressions of 10th. We're talking how many ooh-woos out of 10 we're going to rate hometown. What we're currently building now that we've seen all the data sheets, and where 10th goes. I think we also have some learning lessons of how we might apply some things to our upcoming GT, Iron Within. And if you haven't signed up for it, you need to sign up for it. We still got a couple open slots. It's going to be the biggest, the bestest, the greatest event this year at Edmonton. It's got to have, the best bar service. No one else has bar service, so that's a big W. It's going to have the greatest players, the best TO. And I think by this time, we're going to have a wrap on the rules. So it's going to be good competition, too. If you haven't signed up, make sure you sign up. Before we get into anything else, we need to talk about this week in hobby. I'm going to throw it over to Bill first. Bill, 10th edition is out. We've had the time to look at some stuff. We've played a game now. What's on your table? What are you building? What are you painting?
I've been pushing really hard to get all my Drukhari ready to go for 10th. Signed up for that summer league, which has been good motivation.
Have you play your 10th edition game yet of the summer league?
No, I got that coming up here on Thursday.
Who are you playing against?
Mac Perry, I believe, for my first 10th edition game.
Right. Is he still on Space Marines, Blood Angels? Or does he do something
Blood
else?
Angels,
yeah. So should be interesting.
Yep.
I'm just trying to finish up getting Ravagers built. I got 2 of them done. I'm working on a 3rd one. They aren't honestly shit to build. They're beautiful looking models, but just fiddly, dainty, small models. All Drukhari are. All Eldari are. Other than that, it's
dainty. No, they are leaf. They are elegant. I'm not dainty.
Graceful.
Tiny.
Fragile.
We gotta pick words
Glass
that have
cannony.
They have a certain je ne sais twink.
So just been working on a bunch of different stuff like that. Working on getting all my different squads ready. Got a Beastmaster squad I just finished up, a bunch of Reavers and stuff. Just really trying to get a good feel, capitalizing the mobility and the firepower aspect that Drukhari seem to be leaning towards.
We're going to talk about our initial impressions of the 10th here in one of the segments. Before we get there, one of the impressions is that it is a bit more shooty than before. And I actually think the melee aspect, people are going to figure out. I think they're going to see more of that as the edition unfolds, especially with the new terrain and as the mission pack came out. I think that there is a reward for melee armies in there. But as you're building your Drukhari, you're definitely going more of a shooting aspect. You have to watch out for those Blood Angels. Scotty here, as a Blood Angel player, was talking about how, on paper, their faction bonus sucks. +1 strength is not as good as +1 to wound. But that +1 strength pushes them into that strength 6 territory, that strength 5 territory, where stuff actually really starts to matter. Especially for your stuff that's a little bit tougher, and for all your T3 Griblies.
Yeah.
If he gets that charge bonus, we're wounded on 2s, and then you're picking up stuff and taking it home.
It's a +1 to wound bonus, I think, more often than people are realizing. So,
and I think that back in 9th edition when they first had their +1 to wound, people were playing like 3 Smash Captains, and one Smash Captain was out there shrekking a knight. That felt bad on all parties. One captain should not be able to go Sanguinus a Titan, right? As in whatever book he does that in, that's fucking wild.
Siege of Terror series.
Yeah, that's dumb. But that was on the tabletop. I guess maybe that's for the narrative gamers out there. I don't know.
It's for the narrative guys, yeah.
But because they don't have +1 to wound anymore, Blood Angels aren't just walking up to the T12 stuff and just slapping it. Not like they used to, at least. Scotty, what's on your table?
Actually, this week, the past week, I didn't get a whole lot of hobby stuff done because I was just really, really focused on trying to get games of 10th in before I walked myself into a giant GT all weekend. So aside from, organizing a few things here and there, I was more just running games and fucking around on Unit Crunch and shit like that. I do have some models to show off because I did get to bring Tyson's gorgeous Custodes army with me to hometown. I don't think we're going to get much focus here, but that is what it is. But he does have this gorgeous Custodes army, which was in some ways a hobby thing. I got a whole army done out of nowhere, just out of the ether. This week I'm back. I'm going to be back at it though. So
he's actually the secret sponsor of Trident Wargaming because
mysterious.
Yeah. So shout out to Tyson for getting there. He maybe deserves, the best general, best overall, best Eldari because his models are present for all of that.
He gets all the winnings.
You talked about stat crunch or unit crunch. When you look at new edition stuff, to what extent do you find that like playing games is valuable, or doing that active research to figure out, no, I do want this unit to deal with this perceived threat, and this one is better than this one, and I want to take these instead. Where do you, how do you prep like that?
Playing games is way more important for sure. It's always gonna be. And I actually think that especially if you are a less experienced gamer or a gamer who doesn't get to play very often, you're not even going to know what to put into an algorithm or unit crunch or how to math hammer, because you're going to be making false assumptions about what's going to be happening on the table. So you definitely need to do that. I don't usually use unit crunch a whole ton. In ninth, I'd use it here and there if I wasn't familiar with the matchup, just to try to give myself a reference point. But I did do it a lot going into 10th just because so many profiles changed all over the place. And I wanted to, especially with there was a lot of overreactions with 10th, both positive and negative.
Really added it right now.
And I wanted to just get a frame of reference for what actually certain units would do, or what they could handle, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I've done a lot of that. I'll be doing less of it in the future now that I've got, a decent number of games under me, and that I did, sim some stuff. But it can be a good tool. It's like so many other things. It's a good tool. You should use it, but you need to know how to use it, So
for listeners out there who have never heard about this, who don't know what we're talking about, what is it called?
Unit Crunch, which you can literally look up. I think you can punch Unit Crunch into Google, and that would literally get it for you. It's basically just a math hammer device. It's unitcrunch.com is the website, and it allows you to build units mathematically, like label all their weapons and stuff, and it allows you to put all the modifiers in that you might expect, like rerolls and cover and all that crap that you might think comes up in buffs and shit, and gives you a mathematical breakdown statistically of what will this unit do to this unit when it attacks it, and just kind of gives you an idea.
Which is a really good thing, so that when it happens on the table and you don't kill the thing you're supposed to, you can be fucking disappointed.
Yeah. And also so that you don't get ideas that, oh yeah, this thing will definitely deal with this threat for me, when statistically that might not be true. Or maybe it will,
One of my wins on this weekend had a little bit of casino math to it. I was playing Genes to their Cult, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, where I had the opportunity to Overwatch, and if I didn't, I was going to lose some very important things. Mathematically speaking, the Overwatch does not pick up the Genes to their Cult. You'd need to roll a 6 to hit, I need to roll 6 to have wounds, I need to pick up lots of mortals, and I knew that I'm probably not going to get there, but if I do get off there, there's huge reward. So one of the interesting things is you can math hammer everything you all want. When things are swingy, especially, there's wild variance. And I think if people aren't listening, like if they don't know that particular thing, when swing can happen, sometimes it's worth it.
Well, that's
when you need it.
Yeah, that's where the game sense is. That's what you get from playing the games, is knowing when it is smart to make a gamble and when it's not.
Gamble every day.
Yeah, no doubt.
Fuck, I'm playing.
That's why you play the games.
I'm playing Boomer Hammer, man. I've never used a unit crunch or anything like that before. I too am interested in checking this out. Maybe you can give us a run-through tutorial one day.
Yeah, I'll do a video for you guys.
This week in hobby was my last week of teaching. School just let out, so it was a very busy week. And I had already painted up the D cannon support, the fire cannon support, the fire prism, all the busted shit you've been hearing on the internet. And we had a huge tournament coming up. And I had a bit of decision list paralysis because we all know that Wraith Knights were wild busted, but I don't own any. And Friday at 3 o'clock, hours before list submission, hours before the tournament, I'm like, I'm gonna build and paint a Wraith Knight. This is happening. And so, we set the speedrun timer. We had to label out the speedrun targets for each of the sections, and we speedrun to Wraith Knight, and it worked out. We got battle ready. We were not paint ready, but I did manage to get a Wraith Knight. I even magnetized all the arms. Thank you very much. Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That was part
Next
of the
level,
speedrun.
bro.
I got a PB right there.
Quite the job for 12 hours.
And I was up extremely late, but it ended up being really worth it. I didn't get dick all done for hobby that week other than the Wraith Knight, but now that I'm not teaching little gremlins, man, I got 10 Striking Scorpions built, I got 20 Warp Spiders over here, I got Illic, I got Rangers, you know how much China Forge is on the desk over there? So much. Actually, you can't even buy Illic, he's not even on the web store. But he's going to be a mandatory inclusion in every single Eldar list until the Lone Operative gets nerfed. And I'm just wondering, what is GW thinking?
Yeah. Well, we talked a bit about Lone Operative last time around as one of our problematic rules that are in the game right now. So we'll see.
And, I lost a game at Hometown because of Lone Operative, and we'll talk about that in the future. Before we get into that, what I want to talk about is initial impressions of 10th. We've now played between 1, Bill, and 10, Scotty, myself, games of 10th edition. We've had times to play out the things that Scotty was talking about, how you get the real game sense from playing games. So I just want to, have a quick round table about our initial impressions. Things we like, things we love, maybe some things that we're like, I'm not so sure, and you cannot talk about Lone Operative, Towering, or Dev Wounds. That's a disallowed topic, that's forbidden. I want a hot take that's not those things you don't like that you're not sure about. Some real content. No Art of War tier lists allowed. So I'm gonna throw it over to Scotty this time first. Initial impressions of 10th. How you feeling?
Pretty good. As we talked about before, I have relatively high hopes for 10th. I think that the framework there is there for a really, really, really good game. There's a lot of bugs to work out right now, but I'm confident that they will be. I feel like the main things with 10th, if I were to pick just one or two things that are just really, really, I feel are the best improvements in 10th. One of them would be game flow, which you're definitely not necessarily going to notice the first few times you play 10th, probably. But once you get to 5, 10 games, and I'm sure as you keep going, I feel like the game naturally flows much better and faster. And I'm especially jazzed about that. If it is possible that we get to the point where a game of 40k, a standard 2k game, is taking 2.5 hours instead of 3 or 3.5, I am going to be elated, and almost anything else that could have happened will be worth it. Because I think making the game a little more accessible time-wise makes events so much easier to run. And I think that it's just good in general. So one thing there is just definitely game flow and speed. And simplicity, which is a big part of that. Not to say the game is simple, because there is still a lot of complexity, which is good. But that would be probably the number one thing. And then the second thing that I actually kind of like, or consider an improvement, I guess, over 9th is, and this is going to sound stupid because I know we're going to have issues about it later, is interactive ability. There are issues in 10th that specifically are around non-interactive plays and non-interactive units. However, they are largely limited to a relatively small group of matchups. And the majority of matchups actually do have way more interactivity than they used to. And that's an incredibly important thing in a game like this. I think 99% of the time when people are bitching about the state of the game, they're bitching about something that is non-interactive. And that's what we're doing now with the things that are wrong with the game. But I see a world in 6 months or so from now where the game is the most interactive it's ever been, and that has me very, very excited.
Well, we're sitting on the precipice of a fact. James Workshop even, has specifically emailed out to the Tacoma players for the U.S. Open that there is going to be a fact this week. They're going to address Eldari Fate Dice specifically. They mentioned indirect shooting, and they talked about towering in their video. Before we get into Bill's impressions of the 10th, here's my, in 50 seconds rapid fire, what's your predictions? What are they going to change in those particular issues? Like, what do you think the Games Workshop fix is? Fate Dice goes down to 6. Nobody gets towering. Indirect is not getting.
For indirect, I think the easy money suggestion is just that they revert indirect the way it worked in 9th. That would be what I'd bet on. Well, for sure, changing the hit penalty back to a ballistic skill penalty. Do they make it +1 armor? Maybe. Like that would be better so that it stacks with cover. But I don't know whether or not they actually go down that road. But I definitely see the hit penalty changing. For Fate Dice, the two obvious answers that not obvious because they've done this before are to reduce the total number, just nice and simple, or to make it so that they are limited to one per phase per unit kind of thing. Same way Miracle Dice work right now.
What did they?
Sorry,
they nerfed them. Harlequin Laughing God Dice.
Yeah,
they nerfed them twice, and I don't remember what happened first.
The first time they just reduced the number because you had a starting number, and when they first nerfed them, they nerfed it to 0. You start with nothing, and then you just gain them through the game. So anyway, there are lots of ways to fix Fate Dice. What they actually do is up in the air, but that would be my guess. I'm skeptical that they do a change to towering right away. I know they mentioned it. Maybe they do change it. It's very easy for them to change it just to revert it back to the way it was or make it not count for now or whatever. I would be surprised though if they did, because I feel like they probably, it's a big rule that they probably want to dick around a little bit with. And I actually think that the issues with Knights that people are seeing only so much reference towering. I think Knights are strong for other reasons besides towering. I think we can see that in the win rate difference between Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights. But who knows? Maybe they will throw something in there. I'd much, as we said, I'd much rather they change Lone Operative. I feel like that's a more concerning problem right now. But
I don't think the majority of people have experienced why it's problematic yet.
Maybe not.
I think they're focusing on the big takes about wow, Fire Prisms are 20 points too cheap, and Wraith Knights are wild, and the Knights blow up everything. Without realizing that the Gene Stealer cult Saboteur that has Lone Operative that does fucking between 4 and 6 mortals to you when you come within 12, and then still doesn't fucking die, is more of a problem than than perceived. Billy, you've now played one game of 10th edition. You've talked a lot of 10th edition. I know you're going to cover some of this in your conversation with Andy.
Yeah.
But just overall initial impressions, broad strokes, how you feeling?
Overall, really good.
And before you go, you have the unique perspective of being the expert here with most systems played. Okay, you play Heresy, you play Titanicus, you play other stuff, some bolt action, right? So, with that in mind, how are you feeling about 10th edition as a system?
As a system, I do like the refresh take. I never really got a ton of games in 9th. I got a decent amount, but kind of mid-teens, I think, overall. 10th plays pretty good. It's a lot of fun, just the way that the army seems to play now. From my game in 9th when I played Jordan to my first game of 10th, it feels night and day for me. Just my army doesn't hit super hard, but it neither does a lot of stuff that I was playing against. It didn't hit me hard either. Units tend to live a little bit longer. The shooting was still really good. Combat, even though I got charged, I still died in combat, right? Very glass cannon feel, which is fine. I know you warned me about that with T3, so it's definitely something to get used to. It's not power armor, that's for sure. But I think overall 10th is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to go well, especially getting more practice on the battle app and using the tactical objectives and stuff like that. Actually, I
And
thought it was
did you
quite
play a Taco
enjoyable.
mission?
Yeah,
You
I
played
did.
Taco?
Yeah.
And did you feel last time we talked? I pretty much told you that 10th edition is essentially contest middle objectives, and armies that can contest those middle objectives are going to score higher on primary, and they're going to have more options when it comes to dealing with those random secondaries that come up. Was that your experience? That those middle objectives matter?
I would say yeah, that's pretty accurate. Especially when you have to do some of these, hold two in no man's land and kind of bounce around the board. If you've got the mobility to be able to achieve that, I think tactical is the way to go. Honestly, like it was pretty good. The game I played, last tactical objective I got was to score the enemy's objective. And at the time he made it sticky. He was off of it. I was able just to swoop in there last turn and score it off of him, and that was 8 BP.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty sweet. Like I like that a lot actually. Also, it felt good because I had the mobility. So I think it depends on your army as well.
Yeah,
So.
For listeners out there who haven't played a lot at 10th, who listen to us because they like the occasional like tip or trick. Here's two. The first one is middle objectives matter. They give you options, and options are what win games. Even if you're playing an army that's highly mobile, like Dark Eldar, or less mobile, like maybe Custodes. So you need to find a way to get on those middles and hold them. Secondly, here's a trick for any army that has a fire and fade type mechanic. Most of them no longer require you to fire. All right, so if you get like go into corners and you have Shroud Runners, well, let's move 14. Let's advance 6 inches with a fate dice. Now we're moving 20. And let's use fire and fade. And we'll go another whatever it is. I think it's a full normal move, so I think you get to go another
It's normal
14.
move, yeah.
So now all of a
wild.
sudden we're 14, 28, 32 into a corner, and we're doing an action. As long as you're still have the eligibility to shoot with that rider to do the action or whatever.
Hey, let's not give the Eldar too much help here. I don't.
This is for the Dark Eldar players out there, but there are a couple armies with fire and fade mechanics. Like I think Tau has one. I'd have to read theirs specifically, but there's just a little tip that on Reddit right now, for those of you who are on like Warhammer competitive or anything like that, or if the name McWerp means anything to you, there are a few players out there who are like pointing out like just laundry list of things that there are like no rules for or that need a fact. And like, for example, here's another tip. Many missions require you to be able to do an action or require you to be able to be eligible to shoot. If you advance and you have an assault weapon, you are technically eligible to shoot. Now, they did kind of address that in their playable fact, being like what is eligible to shoot, but specific rules override other ones. So that one is kind of contested in some online communities. Some. What are your takes on that, Scotty? Can you if you have an assault weapon, can you advance and be eligible to shoot?
I mean, I was doing that all weekend, so I hope so.
Me too.
But like really, as it is currently worded, yes. In general, actions right now are easier, or the activity which passes for an action is easier than it was in 9th. I think by design, though. I think they wanted it to be easier, to be honest with you. At least that's my take. But hey, maybe that'll be addressed in this FAQs this week.
I doubt it, but maybe. My initial impressions of 10th are I actually really like it, and I was dooming on 10th really hard. I got a lot of shit from Scotty and some of our group chat mates. Once upon a time said it was the worst edition ever. That it was going to be fundamentally worse than 9th. That there's going to be huge issues, and there are huge issues. But I think the game, as Scotty mentioned, as a whole, actually plays a bit smoother. That not having laundry lists of stratagems, you can tell your opponent, you can ask to see their stratagems before the game, and there's like 4, of which 2 matter. Like, what does Gene Stealer Cult do? They can deep strike within 3 inches. Cape, check. I need to know that. What do Custodes do? They can fight first in like fucking whenever they want. Cape, check. I need to know that. So like the list of gotchas that you have to have a pregame conversation about is much, much shorter. We actually had the opportunity to play the new match play missions, including the suggested terrain deployment, all throughout the weekend. And I'm actually a huge supporter of player placed terrain, because if you have player placed terrain, your army's never going to get like just dicked. You're never going to lose turn one. Well, depending what you're playing against, you're never going to lose turn one because you didn't have access to terrain unless they have like massive towering or something like that. But that's a whole other issue. And actually, I didn't feel that with the new missions and the new terrain placement that I was getting dicked on terrain. I felt like I had adequate terrain. Part of that is because Hometown has pretty good terrain. But without having to do player place terrain, it actually sped the game up quite a bit. Scotty talked about how, in a perfect world, we get these games to 2.5 hours. Yeah, if we can reduce like decision making like that, and we can have 2.5 hour games, that's wonderful. I don't think people are going to be playing 2.5 hour games casually on their Thursday night gaming club, because I think you're still going to be drinking beer and shooting the shit, and it's going to be 3-4 hours, and that's fine. But if we're talking tournament Warhammer, finding a way to speed it up from that 3 hour mark is important.
Absolutely.
Other final initial impressions of 10th on my end is I like how quick Games Workshop is responding to things.
Yeah.
For those of you who didn't know, like they saw community response from their live stream games, like when the Art of War people played Eldar versus Imperial Guard, and people were fucking flipping out over support weapons. When they released the indexes digitally, they changed them automatically to single use instead of 1 to 3. And they actually upped the points from that like initial content creator people who only had the points from like 55 to like 95. So they hot fact stuff like rapidly. And with an entirely digital rule set, even though you can still go by index cards, their ability to hot fact stuff is even more powerful than before. And if they are setting themselves up to be responsive to ongoing issues, to tournament results, to data, that's a really big step for them, because they've never been like that before.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just my thoughts.
And that's one more reason to be positive about the coming releases. So
that's it.
Very true.
So as we get into the next part here, we talked about Hometown a lot. Scotty and I are going to talk about Hometown matches in 50 seconds, I guess. So the gimmick is it doesn't actually have to be 50 seconds, but like what army did you play? Quick recaps of the armies that you played against, and then wrapping it all off, how you feel about the Hometown GT.
How many ooh-woos?
How many ooh-woos? Yeah, we'll get into that. If you can rate Hometown out of 10, how many thumbs up? How many ooh-woos? How many cat girls? Whatever your particular measurement is. How do you measure things, Bill?
That big.
So we'll turn it to Scotty first.
Okay.
Just Hometown in 50 seconds.
Oh shit.
My rounds in 50 seconds, hopefully.
Your rounds.
Hometown was great. Hometown was great. I mean, it's always. I've had the chance to attend 2 hometowns now, and both have been spectacular. I really loved Laurier Heights Community Center. It's a wonderful space for 40k, and it's always pretty crisply run. Tom and Steve do an excellent job. So this year, I had the joy of playing into 3 Imperial Knight players, as well as an Eldar and a Chaos Daemons player. My first round was against Ward Kapach, who's of course legendary all throughout Edmonton. Wonderful guy. I have never actually had a chance to play him, despite knowing him, almost 20 years, I feel like. So this is my first time to playing against his beautiful Imperial Knights. He was running a triple Warden list with some Armigers, which was actually also my first game against Knights in 10th. Ward, it was his first game of 10th period, so he was still kind of figuring things out a little bit, but of course he's a veteran gamer, so he more or less knew what he was doing. That game went in my favor pretty quickly, just partially I think because of the deployment. We were on corners. That mission that deployment type always is very handy for combat centric armies like my custodes.
Did you get a turn 1 charge?
I did. Yeah, I did. I actually think I got 2 turn 1 charges because he had a Vindicate that was infiltrated, and I had the 1 unit that can advance and charge, so that was 2 different. But he did deploy pretty aggressively, and which I don't think it was wrong per se, but there's an 18-inch gap in between our deployments, which makes being aggressive a lot easier. And once you get custodes on top of knights, it tends to kind of snowball that way.
Or anything.
But Wardens do have the -1 damage thing going, which made it much more of a game than it might have otherwise been. But it was wonderful anyway. Game 2, I played against Brendan Bartok's Daemons. That was always fun. Brendan's a great guy. But also, I just love combat armies on combat army matchups because it's literally always a turn 2 nuclear detonation in the middle of the board. They just kind of move into each other, and everybody tries to pull off all their shenanigans right away. And one guy walks away from it, usually with a very slanted score, even though the game's probably pretty close. But that just happens because everything dies on turn 2, and the guy who's got anything left racks up the score the rest of the game. So we had a good time. I love playing against Daemons in general. So that was a lot of fun. Game 3, I played against Martin Hill with his Imperial Knights, which are quite a bit different from Ward's. Martin runs a few of the Forge World fellows, including a gigantic Porphyrion, which is a wicked fun model. That one went a little differently than Ward because Martin played a little bit more conservatively, but we were also playing Deploy Servo Skulls, which is a mission we will not necessarily talk about here because you guys don't need me to rant for 3 hours. But I don't think it's a particularly good competitive mission. Let's just put it this way. And I think that the Knights versus Custodes matchup on that mission is pretty slanted in the Custodes' favor. And that's kind of how it shook out on the table. But Martin's such a wonderful person to play against that we had a ton of fun anyhow. Day 2, Game 4, I got to play my second or third game against Eldar this edition, which has always been no fun at all. Not on the part of the Eldar players, but just the Eldar in general. I actually, for what it's worth, not to completely rag on Eldar here or their current state, I actually think Eldar will be a good matchup into Custodes even after Eldar are nerfed and brought down to earth a bit. They just naturally pair up pretty well versus aggressive armies. And Custodes, as you mentioned, aren't super fast. They more count on their durability to get them to combat. So Eldar is a tough matchup at the best of times, and of course, right now it's not the best of times to be playing against Eldar. So that one got away from me pretty quickly. That was Riley Tremblay's Eldar. So he took the W on that one, but it's still like the thing about Eldar that I can say about this edition is every list I played has been actually quite notably different, which is awesome because it shows that the book has some depth. And that actually is really cool. And I'm actually really hopeful for a lot of books to hopefully have some internal competition, some good depth. So that was fun because it was still kind of a new experience. And then my last game, I ended up playing against Ryan McLeod, our own Trident's Ryan McLeod, and his Chaos Knights, who once again were quite a bit different from the other 2 Knight lists that I played, a very shooty Chaos list. And he played me very, very well, actually. I think he had a thought in his head about how he wanted that mission to go, and he executed it very well. And it was actually quite close.
Big gamble at the start because the mission you guys were playing is where you got to place objectives.
Yep.
And you also get to place the one in the deployment zone. So he rolled to place the objective. He placed it covered in terrain. Well, you placed yours in the open.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of his thought pattern was, I mean, as a Knight player, he doesn't really care if his objective's in the open.
Yeah.
And whereas if he had won the defender roll-off, which he ended up doing, he could make it so that I had to have an objective in the open, which I obviously don't want. I'm using little 35-point exaction squads to hold things. So yeah, he actually played the pregame very well. He played deployment very well, and he actually played the game very well too, because he knew to just back off. At some point, if you came by that table on turn 3, you saw like 5 Knights on his back board edge. He just completely backed off, which normally doesn't sound like a great idea, especially as you were saying with this whole idea of hold the midboard. But he knew that it was limiting my ability to move as well, because I can only get on top of things so quickly. And he did have one corner where he was able to hold a midfield objective. Anyway, the game actually ended 85-80, I think, in my favor. It was very close. And just a wonderful way to end your weekend. So my games were all top to bottom very fun. Mostly fairly competitive games. Definitely a good way to catch myself up on 10th and the way the 10th works. There was lots of learning happening all weekend, just little things, big things, strategy things.
Now, you played both Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights. You actually maybe have more of a unique experience of the Knight matchup than maybe other people do. Player skill aside, is it true that Imperial Knights are just straight out better than Chaos Knights?
Yes. I think that Chaos Knights have a trick or two that they actually, a competent player can really, really use to drive home some success. But like you are skating uphill a bit with them compared to the Imperial Knights, just for the passive stuff that Imperial Knights do. And I think the Chaos Knights naturally, a lot of their strengths are going to lie in being a more aggressive knight player, which I think is just inherently a less good way to play knights.
Because the edition is more shooty right now.
Yeah, which we've kind of touched on a little bit. So when you have to lean into that as your strength, it's already kind of not good. And there's just, of course, so much of their buffs are conditional and things just like that. They don't get as much free shit. Let's put it that way.
And their Gatling doesn't do mortals.
That's a great example. Yeah, just little things, and it's like it really is nickel and dime across the whole army. There's no one thing. It's just nickel and dime that they're just a little bit worse here, a little bit worse here, a little bit worse here, a little bit more work for the same thing here.
One more
like
question
that.
before you get into your rating of Hometown.
Mm-hmm.
The rapid fire battle cannon, or as I like to call it, the rapid fire bullshit cannon. How much of an impact did it have in your games, and is it as bullshit as I think it is?
It's not, as I've argued all along. I do think it's a good gun. I would not change anything about it from a game design perspective, but it's not going to mow down the field just because of the nature of having 1 AP.
What if it had dev wounds?
Maybe it fires enough shots and it has a pretty high damage value, so I can definitely see that being a problematic thing.
Wounds to even the field.
Well, you can email GW about that, let them know, and tell me how it goes for you.
All right. Now, overall, if you're gonna ooh super hard for Hometown Daddy, how many oohs do you give it out of 10? Hometown overall, the entire experience, the games, the terrain, the premium FLG tables, the prize support, the cost of your ticket, the food, the organization, their response to 10th edition facts. Out of 10, what do you rate it?
8.5, maybe 9.
Really high.
Honestly, yeah, quite high. I think that specifically this year, Hometown got handed a little bit of a shit sandwich by GW, just because of the timing.
Well, they're forced to play 10th edition. Nobody wants to play 9th anymore.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm factoring into that. There are things that I might have liked to have been better, but I'm not expecting the organizers to have followed through on those types of things that I would have liked to have been better because of the time frame. They were, honestly, I think they did great just considering how much shit they had to basically pull out of their ass last minute. Like GW was releasing rules that we used for this weekend right up till like Wednesday or Thursday of last
Thursday
week.
Yeah.
So I think that they did incredibly on that front. I'm not a huge fan of the GW terrain layouts, for example. I think they're good.
That's because you play a melee army.
It could be. I actually think some of them are actually fine for melee armies, though. But I'm not going to hold it against them to use them because I think they will get used for at least a little while as people try them out. And I actually think they'll probably stick around because players do benefit a lot from having consistent terrain that they can play on. They're used to playing with, especially less experienced players, because they'll have been deploying in that before. I too am a fan of player placed, but
player placed terrain was a different skill set. You had to have practiced it. You needed to know how you wanted to interact with your army. And if you hadn't done that going into it, you could fuck your terrain up royally and then lose the game because of it. So on one hand, it might be a good thing that it's not there.
And I also, I'm not a huge, I would have loved for TOs to be able to make some hot fixes to the game for just the really out there kind of shit. But I never holded that against the TO for not doing it because I know that 9 times out of 10 you just create more problems than you solve, and you piss off your players. It can all be a lot of trouble. So
goes viral like that one GT in England, right?
Eater,
they decided to outright ban Eldar, which frankly is, and I hate to say it, Eldar plays an entirely different game. That's a fair assumption. I think in the right hands and in the right hands it was unbeatable at Hometown with Riley Trombley's list.
Yeah.
So
I think overall the things that I would complain about were not things that I would hold against the people running it. It makes me not want to give it a perfect score because I can't say I had a perfect weekend. But the reason why is more GW than anything. Really, I did have a very enjoyable weekend. My games felt great. I felt things were extremely well run. Edmonton has an amazing community of gamers where, you just know 99 times out of 100, you're going to have a great game no matter who you get drawn up against. Food was great. Beer was wonderful. So I think, and everything ran pretty smoothly, even though they were, a lot of times trying to figure out even round times, like what's a good round time. We're going to try some stuff out, and things still ran smoothly. So
I don't know if I saw any games come to, and like I didn't see all the games, mind you, any games come to the point where someone lost because they lost on clock time.
Yep.
Which
Yep,
might be
I
like
agree.
a 10-star review for the edition for Games Workshop. If your brand new game can go to tournament time with inexperienced players and the crazy motherfuckers playing Gene Stealer Cult, like,
and I think it'll only get better. So, how about you? How was your hometown, Arthur?
all right, so matches in 50 seconds. I played 2 rounds of Space Marines, different Space Marines, both shooty Space Marines. I did play Gene Slither Cult. I played the Eldar list, the same one that Scotty lost into. I also lost into. I think actually Scotty played a better game into it than I did. And what was my last matchup? Tau. Railside Tau. Game 1 was against Tau. I was playing Eldar, and I was playing a variation of Eldar that had 2 Wraith Knights. I played 2 Wraith Knights, 2 Fire Prisms, 3 D Cannons, some support for it, and some fast shit, so like Warwalkers and Shroudrunners. And if I was to pick like maybe one unit that was the most important linchpin to my list all weekend, it's either the Warwalkers or the Shroudrunners. And everyone's pointing at the Wraith Knight saying, that's why you're winning. But it wasn't. It wasn't. The players that picked up the Warwalkers and Shroudrunners made me really fucking scratch my head for how I was going to get on those center objectives and score points. But every time, and like, you do kind of have to deal with the Wraith Knights, otherwise they're going to pick your shit up. But it's a choice of like, picking their shit up or tanking my score. So, run 1 was against Tau. And one of the things that I think I needed to realize going into my final game is that first turn matters a lot. And where you're worried about someone shooting you to death, being able to strategic reserve something was important. So against the rail sides, my opponent had 9 broadsides with railguns and support to guide them all, which can strip your cover and give them a bonus to hit. And I think they're heavy, so they could be like hitting on 2s or some bullshit. It's actually something that can capably take out Wraith Knights. I reserved a Wraith Knight, knowing that like maybe he'll kill one, but the other one can come back and pick up some stuff. In the end, I went first, and I think I picked up like 5 or 6 out of the 9 broadsides. Broadsides are not easy to kill. They have a 2-up save, a 1-up in cover, obviously, and with the shield drones, they have like 10 wounds each, and I think they're T6. But dev wounds and really good fate dice is kind of problematic. My rule of thumb for fate dice as they are right now is if I don't roll 3 6s, I reroll. I want more than 2. If I roll 2 and I roll otherwise good dice, like I did against Scotty's game when we played Scotty's versus Custodes, where I only rolled 1 dice that was less than a 4, yeah, I'm keeping those. But just having those reliable 6s is important. Sean Ford was a wonderful player. He didn't complain at all about the oppressive beatdown I gave him. He took the dick and like a good little girl, and then we went home. Right? Like, I don't know how many oohs he's going to rate that matchup, but I gave a little back rub after.
I hope so.
It was a great game. My game 2, I played against Pendleton Cox's Space Marines, and Pendleton is like the ultimate gentleman. He was more concerned with getting us beers and coffees than the outcome on the table. And I actually don't remember who went first in that game, as I'm thinking about it right now. I think he might have. But likewise, I put a Wraith Knight in strategic because he had some pretty good shooting. Space Marines have good data sheets when it comes to some large-scale shooting. And with the Oath of Moment rerolls and the Eradicator mini rerolls and the Gulliman get another Oath of Moment reroll, I think they really have the ability to like compound their shooting to pick up big targets. And that might be why Ultramarines are scoring like a bit higher on the win percentage than other flavors of Space Marine. So I did go second, but I deployed my Wraith Knight as far back on the table, and so some of his 36-inch range just couldn't get it. And then he moved into some of my D-cannon range, trying to get out of those center objectives, and I was able to really just pick up things that were challenging. And then I was able to kind of exploit Lone Operative to place objectives down, because that was one of the missions where you have to place new objectives. And my autarch could just place an objective, sit on it, not get challenged, and then run away if I do get challenged. So I ended up taking that one. Game 3, I played another member of Nemesis Gaming, Michael Blanchett. And Michael is famous for playing 3 Astriuses, that big fuck-off Space Marine tank. This time he only brought 2, but he brought a lot of Gladiator Lancer support. And the things to make that list kind of work. He was, I think, the only player I played who picked up both Wraith Knights. And, like, pretty easily. This was another game where I reserved a Wraith Knight. It seemed to be an important thing. And I was able to, like, I went first, and on first turn I was able to pick up, like, 1 Lancer and 1 Astrius, with, like, Fire Prism and a Wraith Knight shooting, largely due to Fate Dice, and just Alpha Strike harder. On his clapback, he did pick up a Wraith Knight, but then when my other Wraith Knight dropped, I was able to pick up more Space Marines, and it almost felt like we could all agree that Eldar is busted, but to some extent, like, Marines having to pay for their 2 wounds and resilience was like they just did not have enough things to contest, right? They weren't quite tough enough to stand up to my shooting. They didn't have the durability that they're paying for here, and I don't know if other Marines are going to feel like that into every army, or if that's just a unique Eldar perspective. It's probably more a unique Eldar perspective, but the game ended up being kind of a blowout for me. So at the end of day 1, actually, I think all of the members of Trident Wargaming were undefeated going into day 2. We were all tournament and winning position, right? So, like, hats off to Trident. We got some good players under our banner. After that, I played Genestealer Cult. Kieran, another member of Nemesis Gaming. I got almost the full tour of Nemesis Gaming. And I think the big takeaway of that is Genestealer Cult is fucking wild.
Yeah.
It's if you haven't played them before, their battle line units automatically come back when they die. Well, they come back as a blip, but they're going to put them in such a place that you're probably not going to be able to go get that blip. And they can Congo line their guys. Other reanimation has, like, Necron reanimation and stuff, has caveats in that you have to be in, like, coherency with the other guys, and you can't Congo line onto new objectives. Genestealer Cult doesn't have that. And so you think you kill their things, and you think they're going to get put back on their board edge, but then they keep coming back closer and closer and closer. And all of a sudden, you're still staring down 20 neophytes, which really aren't that scary, but they hit on 4s and 5s, but their special weapons in the squads actually do damage. That game ended up being the closest game I played all weekend, mostly because of Saboteurs and Lone Operative on his end. I just couldn't kill him. And I'd end up sneaked out a victory. I think Eldar more likely is going to win that matchup, but he said he played other Eldar and he beat them that weekend, right? And he ended up winning Best General at the end of it. So he played a very, very good tournament. Hats off to Kieran. He's a wonderful player. My final game was against the big boss, Riley Tremblay, and probably one of the best renditions of an Eldar list you could currently make. I did not get a room full of potions and consumables before we get in. I just got the big bad boss music. And I had to try to kill God. And my strategy going in was I thought I could just, like, deploy super aggressively and hope for a first turn win. And I underestimated the amount of Lone Operative in his list. And I didn't realize how important that was. I did end up going first. And I had deployed too conservatively for the aggressiveness that I want. I ended up picking up, like, a Night Spinner and some other small change. But I couldn't get a handle on the Rangers and the Illic Brick, his Autarch, even though my Shrub Runners had a little bit of it. He had Fate Dice to save it. He picked up that stuff in his turn, and then from there on, he only really put out the stuff out of range of, like, Lone Operative to sit on those middle objectives, and by turn 3, it was decided that, like, I couldn't remove that stuff. If I tried to get close, I was going to get picked up by, like, D-cannons, and I didn't have, like, combat stuff that could get there and not care, and he ended up taking it. I think, honestly, Riley just had a lot more experience in the mirror. I think that if you compare our 2 Eldar lists, mine is better into the field, into everything else we played against, but his is better into the mirror by a large margin. And I think at a tournament like this, where, like, you're playing Eldar, your only competition is really other Eldar, that's probably the better metagaming list decision.
Yeah, it's savvy, I think.
Yeah. It was a good game otherwise. He was, fairly knowledgeable. Like, we both learned things that game. He reminded me that Shrub Runners have a 5-up invul, which I didn't read in the datasheet. And I reminded him that D cannons are D6 plus 2 damage, and he thought they were just D6 plus 1. Which is a good reminder that we are playing a new edition of Warhammer, folks. And just because you think rules are a certain way, if someone challenges you on it, don't be like, no. Be like, okay, you know what?
Look it up.
Look it up.
Look it up.
Because things are different.
Yep.
Give the benefit of the doubt for sure.
Yep.
As for how many ooh-woos out of 10 for Hometown, I don't know. I think I gave them an 8 out of 10 last year. And I think my biggest gripe for the 8 out of 10 was like just the cost of the ticket. And so if we look at this year, the ticket was the same. And I think the level of service was the same, right? They had great food. The beer was actually better this year, and there was more of it, and it was good on day 2, right? Like, that's important.
Absolutely.
The food was good. They had unlimited snacks, so like if you need, you know, a little bit of sugar to get you up, if you're getting a little hangry, if you just want a Rice Krispie square, that's there. If you want a pop, you don't have to pay for one. You just go get one. That's there too.
That's always nice.
Yeah. They had impeccable terrain. I think that like outside of, you know, our Trident Wargaming events, that they have the best terrain out of any tournament I've played in locally ever. Right? Like,
yeah, they source a lot of it from taps, I believe. So.
And that's a good partnership, right? Like, terrain has long been an issue for all events. And, you know, with some events in the city, you know there's not going to be enough terrain, so you build a list to accommodate that. Here,
Yeah.
I think that there's the perfect amount. I don't think I played on a table where I'm like, I wish I had more terrain.
Yep.
That's
No, I mean, that
awesome
was
to
a
hear.
huge thing. That was a huge thing and still is with Trident. I mean, we pride ourselves on the fact that we've gone out of our way to have a really, 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 really good terrain set, which is currently in the process of also getting updated for 10th. So, no, I thought their terrain was excellent, especially what you consider, like I said, it was Thursday when, I mean, they had already gotten their terrain, no doubt, but it was Thursday when they figured out how they were going to use it. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
They also had like extra objective markers, extra clocks. Like, you know, I think the only thing they didn't have was someone in the bathroom offering you cologne or to wipe your hands, because I think they had everything else covered.
they did run out of paper towel. Yeah, that was a big deal.
I only use the women's washroom at the events because they're always cleaner. So,
Yeah, I noticed that.
you know,
Anyhow,
I don't. I should.
You should. You could.
No one's gonna bother you
Oh.
if you gotta go, you know, take a
No.
take a number 2. How many out of 10? I think we still have to go with I think we're gonna up it from last year, from that 8. I think we're gonna give it 9 ooh-woos. Now here's why. I acknowledge that they are the first 10th edition tournament, and I think they played it really well. I think their day of organization was stellar. I think that anytime you had to call a judge, they made good rulings, and they made a good ruling post-event with a pretty dramatic issue. But I still feel like $100 for a ticket is a lot. And I don't know, maybe I'm just being a whiner. That's a possibility. Because like the hall is nice. They have like a lot of trophies where you get a little plinth and a model on it. Winners of those trophies get a gift card, 2 taps of $50. And everyone who attends gets a $20 gift card to taps or store credit, right? But like, what if you just charged me $80 and I didn't get the $20 store credit? I know that functionally it's the same. That $100 and $80 with store credit is the same amount of money. But
Well,
like that's
it is and it isn't, but
yeah,
right.
you're
it's
still
fair.
coming up with the 100 up front versus 80. But I get the reasoning.
What can they do to make it a 10 out of 10 event? Probably nothing. Probably just me being a whiner. It probably is a 10 out of 10 event, like all things considered. You know, you got your food, you got your drinks. It was well ran, had good terrain. But like that $100 price ticket, man, I don't know.
What if they made it $99.99?
Oh, I'm in. 10 out of 10.
There you go.
Okay. So maybe if Steve or Tom hears this, they can take that under advisement.
99.
No, I think no matter what, like if you're somebody who's ever been on the fence about going, go. It's a great event.
Yeah.
You'll have a great time.
I'll be honest, listening to the excitement over the weekend and, you know, following along on BCP, I have not gone to a hometown before. I've heard a lot about them. I'll probably sign up next year.
Yeah.
Be able to
That's
go
great.
in and come compete. And, you know, hats off to Tom and Steve for running a good, successful event. Like, congrats, guys. It did sound very successful. 42 players, I believe, was the count, which is awesome.
Yep.
Like, pulling down some serious numbers. And I think that's realistically what Edmonton needs. We need to have bigger events like this. And it's nice to see these guys still, rocking out and growing and improving on what they have
Innovating.
done last year. Yeah, innovating. This round they were pioneers, right? They really blazed the trail. So kudos to you guys. And yeah, we're gonna take what we can and learn from it, and hopefully make some changes and adapt our stuff for our 10th edition event here in August for Iron Within. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to jumping in next round and just rolling dice with everybody. So I think it'll be pretty sweet.
There it is. I think that's pretty much everything I had on the docket for things to talk about. So some other things, we got to thank our Patreons.
I did hit them. I've got them on there. Another big thing is segment after this is Andy and I kind of chatting about our first game of 10th. We ended up playing Incursion, 1,000 points each. Rocked out with tactical objectives. We got to fumble fuck our way through the game, and it took a little longer than the 2 hours suggested in the book. But it was a lot of fun, so stay tuned for that if you're interested.
Yeah, if you're looking for an in-depth dive on learning to play 10th edition 40k, that segment's what you're looking for there.
Yeah, it'll be good. So, and yeah, thanks for tuning in and listening to us chat about 10th edition in Hometown.
So as you see this wherever you see it, if it's on Podbean, if it's on YouTube, wherever it is, just hit us in the comments about what are your initial impressions of 10th edition? Are they similar to ours? Are you experiencing our takes? If you went to Hometown, how did you feel about it? And if what are some things that you would like out of a tournament? I think if anyone was asking me hey Arthur, if you could go to a tournament, what would you like? Here are two things. Number one, the old out of the basement beer steins. I love that. Fill me up a beer stein. You win a trophy from them. It's a beer stein. You can take it to any one of their events, and they fill it up. That event doesn't really happen anymore. I miss it dearly. The other thing out of the basement did that no one else did was they took donations. They took donations to the food bank, and I think that every tournament that could maybe should.
Yeah, I saw Pendleton walking around with one of those steins all weekend. So
his best general, he's got a funny story about that. You should ask him about that.
He does.
I think that's going to take us out. So thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for Bill and Andy's 10th edition recap. It's definitely a segment you're going to want to hear.
All right. We are back. The dice have been rolled. The scores have been tallied. And we got through our first game of 10th edition 40k. Andy and I threw down, and it was interesting. It was a pretty interesting way to play. We ended up rocking out an Incursion game. Just pretty much played Mission A, rolled through all that, and we ended up both picking tactical objectives for this round. So it was a lot of fun. That way, I guess. What army were you playing there, Andy?
So dusted off the Chaos Demons that I had collected and painted up, Tzinch mainly, actually all of it. So yeah, dusted them off, made an army with the app, which I thought was actually really, really good. I really liked the app myself. It helped me out a lot in the game by able to go and check on things and what's what and bring up rules. I know Bill had his sheets all printed out. I just didn't have time today to do it, kind of thing. But so yeah, I just I used the app. It was pretty good. Selected a whole bunch of the units that I thought I would like to try out and play. Didn't take any big old Fate Weaver or anything this time around. Decided to go with the Changeling and a couple other characters, Fluxmaster and a Changecaster. So it's interesting with the game, just going through the different units. Couple of unit of the Pink Horrors, some Flamers, some Screamers, Burning Chariot, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was a bit of a selection of different Tzinch units. So for 1,000 points, there was actually a fair bit. So I thought that was pretty neat. How about yourself, Bill? You had played your Drukhari?
I did, yeah. I brought out the Drukhari as my second game ever. The last time I played them was when you and I played the last game of pretty much 9th that I played.
Yeah.
And we were kind of, teaching you the ropes, and it did not go well for me. So this game was a little bit of a revenge game. So
game.
I was glad it worked out like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I took a decent selection of my Jakari. I was able to test out my Archon and Beastmaster, which was really, really cool squad. A lot of fun. Ravagers were really neat. The Raider was a nice transport to rip around with. The Scourge, the Reavers were fun. The Chronos definitely is like a must take. If you're not taking that Chronos, so you're not getting your 4+ recycling of your pain tokens, you're doing it wrong. Pain tokens were extremely powerful. They've made my army feel very good. Also, just with Eldari bullshit, being able to spend a CP for the Quicksilver reflexes, -1 to hit rolls was awesome. And I pretty much used that exact strat pretty much every turn. It's like, why wouldn't you use it? I guess is kind of a a question, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just let it rip. The Art of Pain as an enhancement that I picked up for my Archon was a lot of fun and definitely worth it as well. You're getting a free pain token every command phase as long as your Archon's on the board. It was good. It was good. I was probably refunding about half of my pain tokens that I was actually spending. Having everything really close to my Chronos, so that was pretty sweet. For the most part, the way the games went, it was very back and forth. There was a lot of kind of like slow grind, and it was kind of hey buddy, it was kind of cool just checking, just seeing what the squads actually were doing. Now it was really neat. Like I liked being able to look at the index and actually play. Hey bud, hey. So yeah, the game was super cool. It was a lot of fun. It was really good.
There's a lot of things that happened in the game, especially our first game, and like actually learning our rules and playing these units and adjusting to what these units can do and whatnot. I found it really interesting on both of our sides where we had some game mechanics that really kind of messed with each other a bit. Like as an example, with like the pink horrors, them being able to split into blue horrors, and then of course the brimstone. Like Bill had a hard time trying to really knock these units out, especially like in the middle objective that we were fighting over. It was just, you killed 3, yet all of a sudden it's like I got 4 back kind of thing. So I'm still there. I'm still entrenched and contesting the objective. There was a point where I actually took the objective away from you in the center, a little late, but it still happened, right? But the one big thing that I've taken from it is definitely, and I know this was our first game, and I'm fairly new back into 40k as well, is definitely going over your units and going over the abilities and stuff like that, and like the attacks, but especially the ability, like the other abilities that your units / like characters have, right? Like our friend Alex was with us there too, checking things out, and he had mentioned to me about the Screamer's ability of flying over a unit and actually doing mortal wounds, right? That actually could be a lot better than just trying to get in there in combat, right? So stuff like that was pretty neat. I do really like the mechanics, especially coming from playing a little bit of 8th, not really playing 9th because I wasn't really digging 40k, but now going through the rules and like seeing the interactions of the units, seeing the interaction of the actual gameplay, and especially with doing these objectives and like the tactical cards and stuff like that you have to get points for, right? Where before in my mind I had it where I didn't really care for like trying to score the 100 points. Like it just seemed like there was too much going on, right? And maybe there was, like I said, I wasn't really a ninth player, but this seemed quite simple enough, but there's still meat to that part of the game. There's still things that you got to think about, your tactical setting, where your units are. Are you going to take that? Even like the demonic incursion, I didn't use it for like a few turns where I could have used it and actually utilized that unit of pink horrors with my change caster, got him in there to start supporting my other units, right? So again, there's those mechanics that you really do have to try to remember and get going, but it was really enjoyable. You know, I had a lot of fun with it. It was really cool to bust out a game and bring these models back out and play. You know, and there's a couple of little different abilities that you kind of go through and realize, oh, this would be good for this. You know, like having this stealth and like also the or the lone operative, right, where you literally kind of float over and take an objective and not really worried about being shot unless these guys get super close to you, kind of thing. You know, stuff like that. It really emphasizes on like you're really looking at how you can score your max points in that battle round compared to, you know, you're just taking units out, right? Now you're starting to look at more tactical stuff. Okay, well, if I take that unit, I can possibly knock them off the objective and take that, you know, that kind of stuff. Or can I zip over here, take that unit out, and now I got it, you know? So like super fun for that. I really like it. I think going forward, I'll definitely be playing more 40k for sure, getting involved and playing these games and trying the different units. And the beautiful thing with demons is, you know, like I got 4 different gods I can play around with, right? So I can find some kind of combination of it that's going to work for me, right? And then also like seeing other units and other armies. Like this is the first time I've actually even really come across Drakari in, I don't know, years, right? And even in past editions, but super fun game, cool little abilities. Another big thing that I found, especially with the way I had my army built, I am fairly short ranged, right? 18-inch range is not a lot.
No.
Right? And not a lot of high strength weaponry, high output damage, right? Because what I think I knocked out one of your units.
Yep.
So, you know, that being said, something to work on, right? Something to look at, see if I can amplify that. But I mean, I did score, what, 48, 49 points?
Yeah.
For a first game. I was pretty happy at that. So, I mean, I didn't think I was going to get past 20, right? So, but yeah, super fun. Looking forward to more of it for sure.
What would you say your MVP like unit would be for in your list?
Well, probably the Screamers, right? They did enough damage to finally knock out the Ravager, which got them a point. They were they were a threat to you, so you had to concentrate a fair bit, right? You had to concentrate a fair bit onto them, and yeah, they allowed some other units to kind of keep to the back and keep scoring. I mean, they grabbed the objective right off the bat, and then they zoomed up and did some damage. Whereas a lot of the other units were kind of more, they got into position, tried to do some damage, and they just kind of got grinded down, even though it took a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right? You know? So, what about you? What would you say is yours?
The MVP, honestly, I think it's going to be that Beastmaster squad. Mm-hmm. It was a really neat squad. They can tank a lot of damage. It's a 20 wound squad essentially. They've got multiple different profiles of attacks. Everything from the Razor Wing birds all the way up to Claude Fiend. Like, everything's doing multiple attacks, which was really fun to bust out. It was just an all around cool unit that was able to do more than I actually gave it credit for. I just threw it in the list because I was like, we'll see how it goes, and it was actually pretty good. I guess terms of the squad I didn't like in my list was because I kind of used it improperly was my Scourges. I ended up not taking advantage of my sticky objectives on my Calibite Warriors, and I kind of had them out of position, so I was forced to use my Scourges to hold the objective where I would move up on a piece of terrain, fire, and then use its ability to drop back down because it was right kind of in the corner, which was nice, but I learned real quick that that was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to have those Scourge flying around the board and getting angles with those Dark Lances and trying to pick off characters or whatever the case may be. So that's one thing that I'll definitely keep in mind for next time. Overall, though, yeah, it was a really good game. I guess what's the one thing in your list you didn't like?
I'd have to say my Flamers, only because of my own damn fault. They kind of I tucked them away in a little bit of a corner, and like twice I ended up just not using them, right? Like I could have utilized them better. They soak up some shots and lost a guy right off the bat. And then the next turn, it was just like, they just got wiped. So I didn't really care for them. There was also, and I think a lot of this was just probably playing them wrong. Again, like with the Demon Incursion, where I can actually, essentially corrupt an objective and then move off of it. I didn't do that enough because I was holding two objectives where I could have easily done it, and then moved off and started actually supporting the rest of my army, because it kind of led to, I ended up feeding you one unit on the one side, trying to do some damage against your beast pack there, and it was just I didn't have the output. I didn't have enough damage to really do it to that unit.
Yeah.
And then they got whittled down, and then they got engaged and backed off, and then I had to force my other unit to come up towards the end of the game. So, beginning of the game, the first couple of turns, I was scoring decently, like I was in the lead for a bit, and then you can start to see that you started catching up almost on par with me, and then you just took over and took off.
Yeah,
and I felt that with the way the army was it built, and probably you need a mixture of different stuff, I just did not have the output towards the last few turns of the game to actually do better damage to you to start scoring points, right?
Yeah.
Because there was, 2 turns I wasn't able to score any points except for holding the one objective.
Yeah. Yeah, which can definitely be a little bit of a pain. The last couple turns, I was able to score all my primaries, which was nice. It gave me a bit of a bump up, obviously, when we were playing. I have to admit, your army, the one squad I really didn't like was those pink horrors. Like, very hard to shift, very hard to kill. As soon as I'm popping a pink horror, 2 blues are popping up, and then a brimstone after that, and it was just like, holy, like it took a lot of concentrated firepower to move those squads off objectives or away from where I wanted them, which is awesome. Like, they're very hard to deal with, and I liked the way that they played. They seemed really tanky, a good backfield kind of unit to hold your deployment zone. Yeah. So
yeah, and the one thing too, like the one thing with the army I did like was just I don't care about your piercing, like I don't care whatever value you have, -1, -2. It's always going to be on my invulnerable save. So essentially it's just like, okay, this is what you did. Okay. I'm just rolling saves. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Which is cool, even though it's maybe somebody who's just getting into the game, maybe not one of the best armies to really show you what the game has in it. Right. So it's a mechanic that is just, it's kind of like demons are like this. This is what they got. They really don't have regular armor saves until you get like to higher characters. But But yeah, no, it's entertaining. I'm actually super hyped and excited to like get more games going. We did 1,000 points, right? So we're going to go larger now to 2,000, which is what guys are playing.
Yeah,
and it's just going to bring more to the table and more games and more excitement, and also just to check out what you can do with your army. Like this is a brand new army for you, so you're getting used to it.
Yeah.
I'm just jumping back in after not playing 40k for years, essentially. So there's going to be a lot of good times, right? And it's a beautiful thing is just you have everything at your fingertips to really soak into and figure out your mojo with your army, So, I'm going to be coming after Scotty B and Arthur, of course.
Awesome.
So, but it's cool because like even though our game was really long, we definitely went through a lot of things and the thought process and going through the mechanics of the game, and I really do like it. And I was actually telling one of the other guys that after going through the rule book of the game, it's really clean and straightforward compared to some other games that are out there, including games made by GW as well. And I'm actually quite really impressed. Like I really like it. This is what will bring me back into 40k for myself, right? So, but definitely excited to check out different units and play them on the battlefield. I'm also coming after Ryan and his knights, so beware.
Damn, he's just throwing out grudge matches everywhere.
Well, that's what's going to happen, right?
It's true. It's true.
Go out for events and stuff too, and then have a beer afterward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, your army when it was first on the board, I was telling you, I'm like, ooh, you got a lot of guns. You are definitely going to outrange me, right? But because I didn't really have a lot of units that had like multiple wounds, minus, flamers, screamers, and like the burning chariot, most of it was pink horrors on the board, essentially, right? So your high caliber weapons, even though they were wounded and stuff, it wasn't, to me, it didn't seem like it was just a huge impact. And maybe it's because of my 4+ invulnerable, and if you're firing into horror squads, I wasn't too worried because they could split.
Yeah.
So it didn't really seem like, holy crap, that's too devastating, that's too overpowered, stuff like that. But there was other abilities like your Quicksilver, right? That really messed with, right? My hitting with weapons and stuff and shooting, it's not the greatest. But you just made it one step worse. So it was harder for me to definitely land the hits and whatnot. So it's cool to see the mechanics. The pain tokens, I think, were awesome on your side.
Yeah.
Being able to distribute those and then use them and utilize them for whatever you need to, kind of thing, however the mechanics work, right? The shadow or the for the demons there didn't really come into effect because I wasn't really holding objectives and you weren't really in my zone making any was it the break checks or the
Battle shock.
The battle shock, see? So it didn't really take effect, and like I didn't really make very many battle shock tests either.
No, they didn't.
Right?
They didn't really seem to do a whole lot of impact on the game, which is fine. I've heard it kind of back and forth that the battle shocks don't really do a whole lot for you, so they didn't have much to contribute for this particular game. But I can see why the battle shocks can be useful when they actually do go off, but I can see you definitely don't want to bank on it. Yeah, more often than not, they're probably going to pass.
Well, that's just it, because like two of my characters had things that would force you to take a battle shock test, and one would put a negative on you plus using the demon rules as well. But like I said, there wasn't that opportunity that really presented itself because it just didn't happen. So, it's kind of some of those rules that could easily slip your mind, but
Yeah.
it's not coming up. Like I didn't do enough damage to you to force you to really do that stuff, except for when we got into close combat, and
Exactly.
out of attrition, it just kind of happened, right? So,
Yeah.
so that's one thing that's kind of like, well, maybe we'll see that more in larger games.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, right? So, but yeah, it was super fun. I had a good time.
I did too.
Yeah. So, pretty cool. Can't wait till the next one.
Yeah, definitely. 2K games on the horizon for sure. I've got another league match here happening when you're listening to this, my listeners. It'll be tomorrow. So I'll tell you how that big first 2K game goes. It should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting more reps in for sure. Especially after hearing about the big event over on the weekend, the hometown. A lot of the guys said it was a blast. So I'm looking forward to jumping in with you guys, rolling dice, playing under that Team Trident name, and trying to kick some ass. So I look forward to getting more games in for sure.
Oh, likewise, it will be good times. Get some reps in and get used to the army and start playing and becoming more efficient with the army and seeing stuff come out. So be nice to play, at the club there on the Thursday nights, doing that, and then whatever other leagues are happening and groups that are playing and tournaments, eventually get into that too after, a little bit of practice and this and that. So, yeah, and then meeting the community, more of the guys in the community. I already know quite a few of them, but to actual sit down and play some 40k with guys that I see every day or every gaming night playing 40k across from me as I'm playing bolt action, right? So, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be great. And anybody who's having thoughts of coming into 40k again or for the first time, it's worth it. Worth trying to play it and try out and enjoy it because it seems like it's very fast, enjoyable, and there's also the tactical side of it too. So, and the models are great. So, I'm good with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Yep. Well, yeah. Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I just want to give a quick shout out to the patrons. We really appreciate the support, guys. We got Frederick, Dustin, Chris, and Tyler. So yeah, with the 4 of you guys supporting us, it's much appreciated. We're going to be looking at ways on growing the program. I think we've been talking about doing a VIP channel in the Discord, which is just going to be for patrons only. It'll be the exclusive membership club, not in the grotto. That's the next step. Okay. But, for now we'll start with Discord anyways, where we can start having kind of, you can have a chat with the actual crew from Trident and kind of maybe get the inside leg on upcoming episodes and kind of what things are going to be happening, and maybe just have a think tank session. Bounce some list ideas, bounce some system ideas. If you got stuff you want to just chat with us about specifically, we're definitely looking forward to doing that with you, and we'll just develop that as we continue to go. I think it can go as high as it goes. So yeah. But yeah, we'll definitely have some more 40k action for you later on. I know upcoming this weekend is that Trios team event. The boys are going to be rolling down there, looking to score some more clout for Team Trident. I know we're going to be fumbling around with our some slow grow Titanicus, and then obviously trying to shoehorn some more 40k in there somewhere. So it should be an exciting weekend, and then we're getting all prepped for our Iron Within GT coming up mid-August. That's August 19th and 20th, which is going to be a 40-man player GT event, 10th edition. We've got a lot of stuff to discuss about terrain and the way we're going to do some of these layouts. I think we've got a pretty solid plan, but we're going to have to chat, the 4 horsemen off the chat about how we want to actually execute this. We essentially want to put on one of the best events we've ever put on, and we really want to come out swinging out of the gate to make sure that we've adapted and made the proper changes that we need to for 10th, especially with the new terrain demands and the way that ruins are kind of more strict in sense of smaller ruins, yet bigger footprints to allow vehicles and other unit interactions to actually make sense. Also, you got the predetermined template, terrain templates that Games Workshop is now, I guess, using as an example from that GT document they dropped. So
for table setup.
There's 4 different templates you can use, and obviously each mission has 1 to 3, I believe, templates that are good for that. So we want to go through everything and make sure we've got enough the proper terrain and the right terrain so we can step out with our best foot forward and make the event the best it could be. So it should be good. But yeah, much appreciated, everybody. Thanks for listening, and always hit us up in the comments. We appreciate it, and we will catch you guys next time.
Yeah.
Did you plug the Patreon? We need to plug the Patreon.